Dr. Aaron, after I come, I usually take a piss 30 minutes later, and it always is a double stream. Can you explain why? Well, hello everybody. We're back. We're back. Kyle, how you feeling, man?
I mean, my team got roughed up a little bit in week 6, but champions always respond and bounce back, so we'll see what happens.
Oh my god, I'm like vomiting. Well, we got a special episode this week, but real quick before we get into any of that, shout out to Joey. Guy was 0-5, beat the champ. You were undefeated. He beat you. So now, Joey's 1-5 and you're 5-1, and you lost to the worst team in the league. You lost to an auto draft team / worst team in the league. So, I hope, I'm not done yet. I hope that sinks in. It burns really bad. Cause he lost to Joey. Okay? Let's just let that sink in. Let's let that nestle.
Okay. So, I'm gonna stop you right there, cause I knew this was coming.
Of course.
And my response to this is, it happens in fantasy football. If any other team in the league was playing Joey this week, they would have lost. He would have went 11.
We would have tied.
He would have won on the tiebreaker bench point, so you would have lost.
Okay. Anyway, so moving on, because we're not going to get into this. We got a special episode. We got the professor, Aaron Watkins, on mid-season. He's going to, at the end of our podcast, he's going to go over his midweek analysis of the fantasy football world. And then we're going to follow it up with some questions and answers, Q&A / just statements to tell Aaron, which I'm excited to let him know. So we're going to do a speedy walkthrough of everything real quick so we can get to the good stuff at the end. So going into last week's games, we had Joey beating Kyle.
Yeah, you just go over this one. I don't even want to talk about this one anymore.
Yeah, I would just shut up if I were you too, so I'm with you. Really, Joey had Derrick Henry. Let's be real. That's it. I mean, and he had Minshew, he had Sanders, so, he had Justin Jefferson. So, I mean, he had 2 players that went off. Beat your team, you suck, Kyle, moving on. You had Kevin, play Kyle Worley. Kevin won this one. And he had Deshaun Watson. Wow. 31 points. Kittle 23. Man, Kittle's been pretty consistent, since he's came back. And, he also had AJ Brown give him double digits, I think in the 20s, for Tennessee. That Tennessee-Houston game was insane.
Yes. And Burley's team, I mean, under 100 again. Probably every game of the season he's been under 100. I don't know.
At least he made a lineup this week.
Yeah, he had a full lineup, so congrats.
And Gronkowski gave him some numbers. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and then
go ahead.
Here's our first slacking of the week. We had Don losing to Taylor 111-73.
Yeah, fuck you, Don. And it's because you're black. That's pretty much why you lost.
I mean, here we have another team who didn't even have a tight end starting.
Really? Oh yeah, he had Noah Fant in. That's weird.
Yeah, he was out.
So Don gives you sub 75. Taylor won. Taylor's on a 2-win streak. But again, he played against me and Don, so we both had shitty weeks against him.
I will say that Don did have people on bye, so got to give him a little bit of slack there.
Are you giving Don love right now? You never give him love.
It's not really giving him love. It's just cutting him a break.
Okay, that's weird. Oh, I see what happens. Hang on, time out. You lose a game and now you're all like nice and shit. Now you're all like, I'm trying to change my juju. Because every other week you've been a savage. And you lose one game and now you're all like, well, yeah, Don had a lot of people on by. I guess I'm just
nothing like a little humble pie, right?
Kyle, that is literally the two opposite words to describe you when it comes to I would say more like cocky asshole is the two better adjectives for that. Anyway.
Well, if I win this week, that Kyle will return.
Okay. So then we had Brandon, who was first in his division. He lost to Charlie. I don't even know where to begin. How is Charlie 3-3? How?
I feel like there's a rivalry now between you and Charlie.
Again, I will repeat it. He gets rewarded for being shitty, and I don't understand.
Yeah, he even played Curtis Samuel, who was out.
And he still won. And he won by a lot. I don't understand. Yeah, moving on. Let's get to the game. Bye. Let's get to that game. Bye.
So this was obviously your best performance of the year so far.
Yeah, because people I drafted actually fucking put points on the board.
Yeah, you beat Orangutan Titties Micah 136-97.
Tying high score of the week.
You did tie high score of the week.
Yeah, so Fitzy gave me 15. He would have had more if he'd have a pick. But Allaire, I mean, look, man, he ran up and down the Buffalo's defense. And I love Chiefs' game plan. Just ground and pound. He gave me 20 points. Kenny and Drake had 28.
Dude, finally.
I mean, dude, come on. I feel like I should get, a 25 or better from him the rest of the year for the amount of shit he's put me through. Amari had 20. He's kind of coming along nice. I'm telling you right now that Dak is gone, Amari's going to get more targets from Wentz. I got a feeling that's going to be a thing. It could be wrong.
We'll see.
And then we had Game of the Week. Aaron, can you see his screen?
Yeah, I can see it.
Okay. So you had Thomas playing against Biko. Kyle, you're really good at explaining like the drama that happened. So can you do that?
Okay, so there was some drama in this game. Biko had a pretty dominant lead in this game. I would have thought if ESPN score predictor, I would have put Biko winning at 97%.
100%. I think real quick before I interject, I think Thomas had 52 points. Right?
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I don't know. He had 52. But anyways, Biko had Cooper Kupp and Josh Allen left, and all Thomas had was Kyler Murray, and he was down 4 or 5. So Cooper Kupp goes and really drops an egg, 4 points on Sunday night. And then Josh Allen, 14 points, but you see the score 80-78. That's 2-point difference. Josh Allen, just 1 minute left in the game, throws a heave and it gets picked, -2 in our league. So.
Oh, wow.
That pushed Thomas ahead. And then Kyler Murray, he did Kyler Murray things. 28.
He played against Dallas. So.
Hey man, it could have been even better for, Kyler if Dallas had been able to put up more of a fight.
Yeah, it really could have.
Yeah, I mean, again, Thomas winning kind of pisses me off. Biko should have won, but whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I was rooting for Biko just because Thomas is in my division and we're vying for that number 1 spot.
Yeah. Anyway, so moving on to, yes. Okay. So we're going to go through the standings real quick, guys. The North Division, you still got Kyle up top. Him and Thomas are now tied at 5-1. Charlie Taylor 3-3. I'm 2-4. Worley's 1-5. The South Division, Brandon and Kevin are tied at 4-2. 2 teams at 3-3. Biko's 2-4. Damn, me and Biko got the same record again. And then you got Joey at 1-5. God, shout out to you, Joey. Man. Anyway, so points for Kyle's still number 1. Brandon, I think, moved up over Thomas. Kyle's in the 800s, only one in the 800s.
Shut up.
Whatever. And then points against. Oh, so me and you see that, Aaron? 744 points against. So I'm second. Micah took over, I guess, from last week.
Yeah, Micah took over the points against lead.
Yeah, and Don's still up there with Joey. So,
hey, it ain't gonna get better for the homie Don this week either.
Why?
Because I'm about to put some points up.
Oh, that's not humble pie. That's cocky asshole. Anyway.
Oh, dang it. I mean,
Yep.
good luck, Don.
Literally, you couldn't even last 3 minutes. All right, so now we're going to go into next week's matchups. Oh, my bad. Yeah, we'll do, scoreboard. So, we got Kyle and Dawn, as you just heard. Apparently, Kyle's going to win.
No, I really think this is going to be a close game.
Oh, nice try. Then we got Taylor and Kevin. We got Charlie and Joey. Hey, Joey, if you could beat Charlie, man, that'd be great. And I played Brandon. I'm probably going to lose that game. His team just has everybody. And then, Thomas is playing, Micah, and then Biko is playing Worley. I guess what would be the game of the week?
It'd have to either be Micah and Thomas or mine and Don's game.
I would say you and Don just because of the people on your teams. Yeah,
he's getting Wilson back from the bye. I'm getting DK back from the bye.
We better hope Aaron Rodgers has a better game than he did against Tampa Bay. And Aaron, you can weigh in if you want. It almost like he was throwing the game. He did not seem. It was very weird. He seemed very like.
Well, it was easily the worst game I've ever seen him play.
Ever.
I don't think I'd ever seen him throw. Like, I'm not saying he didn't, but I definitely had never seen him throw 2 interceptions in a game. So yeah, I mean, he
just looked so lackadaisical. He didn't really seem like he was fired up. I don't know. It's just one of those situations to where, he doesn't strike me as a guy to give up.
I think Ndamukong Suh took all his juice away from him.
No, I don't think so. He went on the Pat McAfee podcast and I watched that. I don't think he did. I think that, to be honest, I think Rodgers was old and was like, fuck it. But then he's playing Tampa Bay. I don't know.
Wait, side note, have you seen the Pat McAfee episode where he takes all the edibles like before he gets on the plane?
I've heard of that story, but I haven't seen it.
Dude, it's so funny. You gotta go look it up. Yeah.
All right, so Kyle, Dawn, game of the week. Now we're gonna go. Kyle, you take it away.
Yeah, so we'll get into our power rankings here. Last 3, we got Worley at the bottom, number 12. Joey with a win moves up to number 11. Biko, he's on a 3-game losing streak, I think, so he's going down to number 10. And then we got on the bubble teams, Malcolm number 9, Charlie number 8, Orangutan Titties Micah sitting at 7. And then the next 3, we got Don at number 6, Taylor at number 5, and I'm number 4. And our top 3, this is the biggest shakeup of the week. Brandon moves down to number 3. Kevin moves up to number 2. He's on a little bit of a winning streak. And then Thomas, 5-1, beat the champ. He's number 1 now.
Yeah. I had no qualms with that.
Yeah.
So I know we kind of sped through that, but that's really the highlights of last week. Really the highlight is, so Aaron, what I did in week 2, okay? I wish death upon every player in fantasy. No, I really did. I said horrible things about Kamara and his family. I really did. And if you remember in week 2, everybody got hurt.
Yeah, it was sort of insane.
It was insane. And so we were kind of like, oh shit. So then, after I went 0-4, I said, I made a deal with the devil to get everybody hurt, and it didn't work out for me.
Yeah.
So I went to spring and roses and pastel colors and bunnies and Easter eggs and shit. and I became nice. Got my first win.
Wow.
And then I lost again.
Okay.
So last week I went back to being evil and I won. So, to kind of wrap this segment up, fuck all your players. Fuck all y'all's teams, especially
Here we go.
The Chiefs won. Nice. And again, I'm still not going to comment on Atlanta sports. I will not this whole year. I will keep my mouth shut. But from a fantasy standpoint, I hope everybody's players either die or get injured horribly.
Wow.
Okay.
Just terrible.
Not naming any names, but anyone outside of my team would be great. Knock on wood.
Jeez.
Yeah. Let that
Brutal.
sink in. Yeah. So, I'm hoping I can continue to ride this evil path to the championship.
Hey, like I said last week, you were thinking you were out of the playoffs, and look here, you're, one game out now?
I gotta get Charlie to. Anyway, so, anything you want to add, Kyle, before we get into the Aaron special?
No, let's do it.
Okay. I could tell you're a little salty, Kyle. There's not a lot of pop to you this week, man.
No, I'm happy for Joey. He got his first win.
No, you're not.
It happens in fantasy. I'm not gonna.
It's
not gonna
basically
cry about
like
it.
saying that, well, you basically just said, I didn't really care or mind. Actually, you said, I'm happy for Joey to stick his huge gargantuan dick up my butthole.
Ouch.
And it happens.
Why do you talk about buttholes on the intro every week now?
This is the best way to describe fantasy football ass kickings. Anyway, okay, so moving on to the Aaron. We got Aaron on board here. And so, Aaron, what I'd like you to do, what we're going to do is he's going to go over, like I said, kind of his mid-season analysis, highlight some stuff, and then we're going to go into the Q&A. So, Aaron, take it away.
Yeah, man. I mean, kind of looking at this sort of midway point in the year. Lots of stuff that I got wrong for sure, which is very fun. And then also, some things that you get right. And I think at the end of the day, it's just kind of the big, sort of the big picture ideas, right? Like we said, there's going to be impact players that get picked up off of the waiver wire every season. So making sure that we're paying attention to that. Obviously at the quarterback position, we were just talking about, a few different people, and there's so many different guys that, on a given week, you could probably pick up and get, a top 12 performance, possibly even a top 10. And there's been running backs that have been relevant every week on waivers, wide receivers who have been relevant, tight ends, who are, picked up after a couple weeks in and are now, core players on teams moving forward. So,
what are some examples? Like, can you just give us one maybe from a couple of the categories?
Okay, I mean, a tight end, Robert Tonyan, right?
Who the hell's that?
All right, Robert Tonyan,
Green
yeah.
Bay or tight end.
Mm-hmm. I would expect him to be on rosters at this point.
Well, if he's not,
I think Thomas picked him up.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'm sure he is on a team. I could have sworn when you guys were looking at the box scores, I thought I saw him. But yeah, Robert Tonyan is an example of a guy, who, probably wasn't drafted, and early in the season really wasn't much of a reason to expect, big involvement or productivity. But he's just been one of those guys that Rodgers has developed a trust for, and you can kind of see it. Especially in his, red zone targets and sort of his share of that work on the team. With Davante Adams out, he really just kind of stepped into that role, and he's had a really great catch rate on that kind of stuff. And Aaron Rodgers is a guy that we have seen over the years. When people are dropping the ball, they start seeing fewer targets. People are catching it. If people are catching it, then they start seeing more targets. So, he's a guy who, like I said, probably wasn't drafted, but now if you picked him up, you're probably anticipating him being your starting tight end for the rest of the year, and hoping that holds. So, at wide receiver, Tim Patrick, is a guy I know that people have picked up recently. There was a stretch where, Mecole Hardman, was a guy that people might have even had in starting lineups for a couple of weeks. Maybe even last week with Sammy Watkins out. Tyler Johnson was a guy that, if you picked him up when Chris Godwin, probably not on rosters now, I wouldn't think, but if you had picked him up when, Chris Godwin and Mike Evans were out, you could have gotten, a decent game out of him. So there's been a number of guys, at a lot of those positions. And then I guess, for quarterbacks, we were just talking about, guess I would probably mention someone else. I mean, Gardner Minshew is an example. I could see, shout out. I could see, I could see a lot of people, having not have drafted Gardner Minshew, but, probably willing to have picked him up a couple of weeks. He might even be on a team now.
The team that beat Kyle.
Yeah. And then, of course, the example of injury. Injury happens and boom, Andy Dalton, is getting rostered. Mike Davis. Yeah. So fantastic example, right? Christian McCaffrey gets hurt and he's kind of the poster boy for, opportunity, right? Because the question when Christian McCaffrey went down is, okay, how do they divvy up this work? And there was essentially no one to expect it to go to. And Mike Davis just stepped into this role. And basically he's getting essentially like 90% of that workload that CMC was getting, which you can see the value that it has. And now it brings the question, okay, how good is Mike Davis? Is Mike Davis 90% of the skill level of Christian McCaffrey? Right? I don't know. We're getting 90% of the fantasy output. And I think it's because we're getting 90% of the opportunity. Now, I don't think that's simple enough to say, oh yeah, anytime that there's an injury and someone is going to get that work, it's going to work, right? Look at Andy Dalton. But what it can do is we can say, okay, is that player, especially when we're talking about running backs, is that player going to be used the same way? Like, is he just going to get carries or is he going to get targets as well? And Mike Davis has become, one of those guys where if you picked him up, if you were on it, your team is definitely benefiting from that,
Biko.
right?
Shout out to Biko.
Yeah, he made money moves on him.
No, he spent like a lot of money to get him early, and we all made fun of him. And he's now laughing. Well, he's lost like 8 games in a row, so no, fuck that.
Well, it would have been more, I'm sure, if not for having Mike Davis. So,
that's true.
Just again, those kind of examples of guys, it happens every year. I think some of the trends that have been really interesting, one, obviously is the scoring, right? The scoring is up. Kind of like we talked about, we didn't know what to expect for the year, with the COVID impacted off season. And what we've seen so far, I want to say week 1, Vegas, totals, basically games hit the over on that by 8 points. Then week 2, it was 6 points. Then week 3, 4 points. Then 2, and then 1. So basically it's taking Vegas a little while to catch up. And, not sure if anybody's looking at Vegas lines, but, if you guys do, you've seen, for example, Pittsburgh versus Cleveland this past week had a total of 51 points.
Really?
That's really high. And, that's been kind of common across the board. Even this week, there's games with totals north of 55 points, 56 points, 57. And this is very unique. And in this kind of, season of heightened scoring, well, we've just seen past games become so much more crucial, right? It's just become so much more important. And it's valuable if you have those guys who are in offenses that are throwing the ball a lot and getting obviously healthy target shares, in that, perfect examples is someone like Stephon Diggs. If we knew that, the Buffalo Bills were going to be among the pass heaviest teams in the NFL this season, then Stephon Diggs probably would have been a 2nd round pick, right? But because we expect it's still going to be a run heavy offense, he turns into a steal this year, right? A big steal, getting him in 6th round maybe.
Well, I think he got traded early on, right, Kyle?
Yeah. So
did you trade rate Biko?
No, it wasn't a trade rate at all. So after week 1, I picked up James Robinson off of waivers for the bare minimum. Oh. And he had Stephon Diggs, and at the time my running backs were looking okay, so I traded I traded James Robinson for Stephon Diggs.
Wow.
And that trade's sort of working out for both of us in different ways.
I mean, I could see it. If you needed a running back, I could see it, but I'd probably rather have Stephon Diggs in a PPR.
In a PPR league, yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't do shit against them cheese, boy.
But yeah, is he's one of those really good examples of it, where if he's in an offense that's now throwing it a lot more, now you have a guy who can see 10 plus targets in a given week. That just becomes so much more valuable when that guy also has red zone involvement, goal line involvement, a healthy ADOT, average depth of target. Those are all really good things that there's going to be spots every single season where we're going to be surprised. And it probably should happen, right? These are NFL coaching staffs that get paid a lot of money to be creative and to figure out ways to beat their opponents. One of those ways is to break tendencies. So this is the reason why, I talk about let's take as many shots on these guys as we can, right? So I don't want to come out of a draft with just 3 receivers, or I don't want to come out of a draft with just 2 running backs. I want to take a shot on a lot of these guys. And this goes to show why we can wait on positions like quarterback. We can wait on positions like tight end. There's going to be players that are going to become viable on a week-to-week basis that we can pick up, and we can play, and we can get pretty solid production out of. Having said that, definitely my biggest wrong call, I think, is the Kyler Murray one.
I was just gonna ask you, what's your biggest surprise / what you got fucking completely wrong?
Yeah, well, it's like a twofold thing. It's the Kyler Murray thing, and it's sort of the DeAndre Hopkins thing. I think what we've seen over the past couple of games is a little interesting, where the target share is starting to come down a little bit more. We're seeing other players get a lot more involved.
Just picked up Kirk. Shout out.
Yeah, which is something that is what I expected. I expected them to spread it out. That's what we typically see out of Cliff Kingsbury offenses. So it's almost looking like a thing where maybe to start off the year, they just really wanted to get him going and just really, welcome him and sort of embrace him into the offense. But now that he's sort of acclimated, they're just going to take sort of their more normal approach. I don't know. Either way, I think if you drafted DeAndre Hopkins in the 2nd round this year, you definitely aren't regretting that choice. And Kyler Murray, I kind of had him as my bust, right? Because I didn't want to talk about some guy being a bust who was probably not even going to be drafted. So I wanted to at least be spicy with it. Mm-hmm. And the idea was, hey, this is someone that's, in some drafts is getting taken ahead of Dak Prescott, is getting taken ahead of Josh Allen, and those are guys that you can get in the, 5th, 6th, maybe even 7th round, especially Josh Allen, the way he fell in drafts this year. You got to draft kind of early, so he might have gone earlier. But yeah, the idea was, hey, is he really going to outperform all of those players in an offense that we expect to be pretty run heavy? The answer is he's running way more than he did last season.
Which fucking sucks for Kenyon Drake.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle to give Kenyon Drake a pass on that because he has still been getting
he just sucks this year.
Yeah, he's seeing 60+% of his team's, red zone, carries and goal line carries. He's had a couple of games, hitting, greater than 15 carries. The problem with Kenyon Drake is no pass game involvement. It just completely evaporated. This was a guy that we were expecting to be able to get 5 targets from a game, kind of be a Miles Sanders type usage. And it just hasn't happened. We've seen earlier, it was just a huge target load for DeAndre Hopkins. As it spread out a little bit more, we're starting to see Larry Fitzgerald get more involvement in that low ADOT range. We're seeing Chase Edmonds spout off a few games with, 4+ targets. So it's been really bizarre because Kenyon Drake throughout his career has been a guy that had pass game involvement. So it doesn't really make sense why they're not using him that way anymore. But he's a guy now that you're just kind of hoping for efficiency from. And
what would you say is your biggest I got right thing?
Biggest I got right thing is, man, that's hard for me to think of because I'm always thinking about what I got wrong. Biggest I got right thing. Maybe Calvin Ridley. Like Calvin Ridley quite a bit. I said if anybody had a chance to be this year's Chris Godwin, someone you draft in 2nd, 3rd round who, ends up being one of the very top players of the position. So that'd probably be the biggest. I'm going to go with a little weird one too and take one, for Blake Jarwin, because the Blake Jarwin call, if you guys remember, I said I think he could be a top 10. Well, if you look him up now, he hasn't done anything, right?
Yeah.
But I said this guy could be a top 10 fantasy tight end. Mm-hmm. And look at what Dalton Schultz has been able to do, just literally stepping into this role.
Yeah.
So,
did he get hurt? Did Blake get hurt?
Yeah, he got hurt like first quarter.
Yeah, first quarter, week 1.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think it was like torn ACL or something.
Yeah, like done for the year immediately. So just not the worst thing that could happen.
Or Malcolm had something to do with that.
Probably. That was before I cast that spell.
Maybe you used it on him just to see if it would work.
Yeah, that was my test subject.
Yeah.
So, I mean, anything you want to tell us going into the latter half of the season? What are some trends you might want us to pay attention to?
Yeah, I think, again, the trend of scoring is something that you should pay attention to. And I think, again, if you're in a PPR league, you already should be looking for running backs that have pass game involvement. But I think you can maybe open up, if you are struggling at wide receiver at all, I think you can open up your sort of scope a little bit in what you would consider a playable wide receiver. Again, on certain weeks, if you have a need, there may be people you can pick up and you can plug in. So continuing to stay on top of the information and being aware of where you can potentially get those guys, is going to make a difference. The other thing is, with this COVID year, we've seen it be really impactful, and we've seen, games get moved around and all of that. It's one of those things where, look, if you're playing fantasy this year, it should probably be because you really enjoy it. You really like playing the game, and you should be willing to inform yourself and make sure you know what's going on. Because that can create some different kind of opportunities. I'm in a league that's kind of small. I'm in like a few, but one of them is like this small league, and someone dropped AJ Brown, right? Like someone literally dropped AJ Brown and picked him up immediately. Like, okay, this person is out of their mind, right? Because we don't want to get caught up in looking at the game logs, right? Like don't get caught up looking at the game logs. There's so many fluid situations with a lot of these teams. You could have guys who right now maybe aren't big parts of an offense, and things could change. And the other thing to pay attention to is rookies. If you've been noticing, this is kind of the point over the past couple of weeks where rookies are starting to emerge a little bit more. We had a breakout DeAndre Swift game. Clyde Edwards-Helaire had been fine, but we had a sort of breakout game.
160 something yards.
Yeah, but still no touchdowns, right? He didn't score a touchdown, did he?
He had one called back.
Yeah. He's had like 3 called back.
Last game he caught one for a touchdown in the red zone and it got called back. And I threw my hat against the wall.
Yeah. So, that's what I mean, where it's like a sort of, cause again, he's still getting so much of that opportunity that it's like.
Yeah, but with Le'Veon now, it's like I can't catch a break, man. It's like now, Clyde Edwards is going to be first, second down back, and then Le'Veon's going to come in on 3rd and 8 and be the pass catcher. And it's just like, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, you guys know I like to deliver some kind of hot take. I don't want to just say the stuff that we're all expecting. And one of the people, in terms of DFS that I think is really interesting this week is Clyde Edwards-Helaire. A lot of people are going to be under that same impression. Le'Veon Bell is coming in. He's going to siphon off a lot of that workload. The way I think about it is, last year, was Damian Williams a viable fantasy play?
No.
Damian Williams was pretty viable, right?
I meant to say yes.
Damian Williams, on average, played fewer than 50% of the snaps. Damian Williams only had a 48% workload last season in Kansas City. So when we think about that, the reason we like investing in this Chiefs offense is because there's so much volume, right? And there's so much efficiency. And if they're not going to be, if they're not going to be in games where they're challenged, then it's going to be a little hit and miss in terms of some of the fantasy assets there. I think the thing that you can sort of feel good about with Clyde Edwards-Helaire is I certainly don't expect him to go lower than like a 45% share, right?
No, I mean, especially after last week. Give the kid the football, man. He's 5'8", and he's like running all over grown men.
Yeah, and this is a guy, again, they did invest pretty significant draft capital for a running back.
You were right about that. That was one of the things you were right about.
Yeah, I mean, at least the take. I mean, I still, the teams where I have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I am still frustrated because he should have more points. I guess he's been really unlucky from a touchdown standpoint. But again, that was the take on it, right? Is look, the organization is signaling that they really like this guy, they believe in him, and the number one competition in town opted out for the year. There's a really good chance that he could be the guy getting 60% of the work. And if he gets that in this offense, that's going to be really valuable. So again, is Le'Veon Bell going to come in and get 50% of the snaps, 50% of carries, 50% of targets? That feels really, really
not right away though, but I'm saying
even
later on in the year,
Yeah, I mean, even long term. To me, I think the biggest person this impacts is Darrell Williams. I really don't anticipate this is going to impact Clyde Edwards-Helaire a ton. Obviously, I do think it could be one of those things where instead of getting, let's say 70% of red zone and goal line carries, he's getting 55% or 60%.
Yeah.
That's still really healthy. Is that something we would draft in the top 6? Probably not. But is that someone we would draft in the bottom of the first round? Still might. Which, in the leagues where I took him, that's where I took him was, like 11th pick.
11th pick, yeah. Okay. Well, now we're going to move on to, some Q&As. Kyle, let me go first.
You start with your questions and then I'll bring in these.
I'm going to ask him the one that involves me.
Okay, go for it.
Efficient.
And in my league, my name is spelled Malcum. Malcolm. That is how I am referred to.
Excellent.
Yeah. So it says, Kevin, ask him, Aaron, why is Malcolm the New York Jets of our fantasy league?
Man, if it's a New York Jets situation, the first thing that comes to mind is Adam Gase, which I guess shout out Adam Gase. Well, I was just going to say shout out. That's another thing that, I guess I can claim is just sort of like not wanting to invest in Jets. Jamison Crowder, obviously, got to take the L on that one, but literally everyone else on the Jets, it's been a disaster. And look at what happened. Remember the Adam Gase effect, that I talked about, the Adam Gase effect where when players get away from Adam Gase, they
get better. Yes.
Look at Robbie motherfucking Anderson.
Yeah.
Dude is looking like a legit wide receiver 1 right now. And what is it, right? He gets reunited with his coach, from college. Look, and he gets away from Adam Gase. So I guess if someone is going to be the New York Jets of a team, they must have an Adam Gase somewhere in their organization.
Well, that's
gotta hire that Adam Gase.
That might be me.
Well, it might not be the whole you. It just might be like a part of you.
It might be the Adam Gase part of me. Okay.
Yeah, the Adam Gase part.
All right, Kyle, you go ahead.
All right, so our next question is from Thomas. He said, have you seen the hashtag on Twitter, Joey got hoed?
Joey got hoed?
Yeah.
No, I haven't seen that. What is
So
that?
we're gonna we asked that because we're gonna explain what happened. It pertains to COVID in the sense of Kevin. Well, Kyle, can you explain it? Because you're more involved with that because you're the VP.
Well, I'm not the VP, but basically, Joey has ran into a little bit of misfortune this fantasy season, starting with
Joey got hoed.
Yeah, starting with the draft, which he couldn't come to, so his team got auto-drafted. And then there was a couple of scenarios that happened during the year where either he lost by a couple points or whatever it may be. Some of his players got hurt. One week in particular, he played Kevin, and Kevin's tight end, George Kittle, was out. So actually, I colluded with Joey and said, hey, maybe you should hog all the tight ends off of waiver wire so Kevin can't pick one up. He did it, and then it ended up where the league voted to give Kevin a break and appointed him Dalton Schultz for their matchup, and that was the matchup Dalton Schultz went on.
Well, Kyle, I wish you'd explain things more clearly sometimes.
Okay, well, go for it.
I don't know though.
Expound on this.
I don't know. I think what happened is that Kevin, so we have it to where we have waiver deadlines now that has the auction system, right? So a strategy that I know me and Thomas have talked about is if my opponent needs a certain player and I've got the capital to spend, I'm going to pick up someone off the waiver wire that he could possibly need to fuck him so I could win. Joey did that. Okay. Joey picked up. What happened is that Kevin waited till like right before the game started to go pick up a tight end. And it was after our deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Right, Kyle?
Yeah, so it was after the deadline where we couldn't pick players up. Kevin, I guess, didn't spend enough fab.
That's what happened. They were going after the same player. Or didn't put in
additional claims.
Correct. All he did, he went after one player, and Joey bet more money on him. He won the player. So Kevin was right. So when 12 o'clock hit, Kevin didn't have a tight end in his lineup. So Kevin bitched and complained to the league. And I will say Kevin made some good points. But long story short, Taylor, our commissioner, for some fucking reason, gave him Schultz. And he went off, and Kevin won that week because of that particular. If Kevin hadn't had his tight end in the lineup, Joey would have won.
So if I'm hearing this correctly, essentially what you're describing is a form of fantasy football socialism?
And I would want to say that Taylor did not make the ruling by himself. He posted a poll or whatever, and the league voted, and it was a close vote, but the vote was to give Kevin a tight end for this week, but moving forward, if you snooze, you lose. If you're
But we also, hang on, Aaron, before, I know what you're going to say. My contingency was that Kevin had to pay double the amount of money for each tight end he tried to claim. So he lost that money.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't just keep that money. He lost it as opposed to keeping it.
Yeah, and you see here in the matchup, Kevin won 96-90. Dalton Schultz had 21.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean,
Joey got him.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense now. I mean, you know me, man. When it comes to fantasy, I'm a very much a free market capitalist. I believe 100% that fantasy owners should be rewarded and should also be penalized for their decisions or lack thereof. I think, cause I guess, I mean, did I hear it wrong? Like this Law and Order trade rape team had an opportunity to pick up a tight end, like, cause
that was the week Kittle was hurt, and they announced like on Tuesday or Wednesday that he was going to be out for multiple weeks.
And it got all the way to lineup lock, and he just had no other tight end on the roster.
Well, What he did was he bid on 2 tight ends.
It was either 1 or 2.
Yeah, and Joey bid more money. So Kevin was banking on having that tight end, thinking no one else is going to put money on him. And Joey was like, "Fuck that, I'm going to get him." And so, so after noon, like not after 12, Kevin didn't get him, so he was freaking out because he doesn't have a tight end.
Yeah, I mean, I'm firmly of the mindset that you're just going to have to take that L.
And looking back on it,
I mean, to be honest with you, I think that's appalling. I'm appalled, shocked.
Joey got hoed.
Yeah, I know, and it's kind of embarrassing saying it out loud now that a bunch of us turned into bitches and allowed Kevin to. And it's not Kevin's fault. He fought a good case and he got enough votes to win. So it was more of a democracy, it was more democracy.
Hey, listen, kudos, a shout out to that guy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's very effective.
Yeah, he was.
Good job.
I have another question from Law and Order Trade Rape Unit. Dr. Aaron, after I come, I usually take a piss 30 minutes later, and it always is a double stream. Can you explain why? This is also the guy who drafted DeAndre Hopkins.
Ooh, okay. Well, I'm not a doctor, so I don't have any advice on your condition.
I would just have to say I'll answer that one for you, Aaron. He wants to know after he comes, 30 minutes later when he pisses, it's always a double stream. Can you explain? Well, Kevin, the vagina is a complex structure on a woman like yourself. So, that's all I got.
That's pretty funny.
But no, shout out to you, man. Congrats on your Nuke Hopkins pick. This is a win for the team talent over situation, right? And it's always interesting. I'm still going to stick to my guns over the long term. I think the same philosophy of, taking Nuke Hopkins going into this year with what we knew, I do still feel like that's bad process. I do.
Yeah.
The result has been good thus far, but if we think about it, that's the same process that would have landed you on Odell Beckham a year ago. And so the only point that I was trying to make with that has nothing, and again, this is a perfect example, right? It has nothing to do with Nuke Hopkins being bad or me thinking he was washed or, he's going to suck. It's just about, hey, the market is still valuing him as if nothing has changed and he's in the exact same situation we've seen the past 5 years. What if that's not true? And if we look before we leap, there was a lot of indication that it probably wouldn't be true. So now over the past couple of games, I'm not sure. We've seen the target share decrease a bit. Like I said, is that going to level out? If it does, might not be the same situation with Nuke Hopkins on your team in the second half as it has been in the first. But I certainly hope that he continues to eat. I think they have some great matchups. I'm excited to see what he does against Seattle. I'll absolutely be having shares of him in DFS this week.
By the way, I won $6.
Oh, hey, nice.
Yeah, I won $6.
Yeah, but Kevin so far has nailed the DeAndre Hopkins pick.
Okay, moving on. So Thomas actually sent me 3 legit fantasy football questions, so I'm going to ask you those because he's the only one who actually sent them to me, like typed it nice, and I appreciate that, Thomas.
All right, but first, Thomas also asked, how far does Aaron think Derrick Henry could launch Kevin with a stiff arm?
Wow.
Pretty far, I would say.
Yeah, I think at least like 15 yards maybe.
Oh, more than that.
More than that.
Yeah. Derrick Henry did that.
15 yards is a lot, man. Launch someone with
That's a lot. So, question number 1. What the fuck is wrong with the Ravens backfield?
Hey, okay, so I guess this is another one that I'll count under the got right column. This was the concern, right? I was down on Mark Ingram. I was down on J.K. Dobbins at market price. And this was the reason. There's just going to be way too much difficulty and challenge in trying to project who's going to be the guy that week. There's just too much involvement. Like I said, with J.K. Dobbins coming in, Mark Ingram wasn't going to disappear. And if you remember, I talked about Gus Edwards, right?
Yeah.
Said, look, this is a coaching staff that really likes Gus Edwards. Gus Edwards is not going to evaporate, so I just don't see how J.K. Dobbins is going to get RB1 type usage. Also, with Mark Ingram, said he was ridiculously efficient a year ago. I think he had something ridiculous like 5 receiving touchdowns on 25 targets for the whole year. Like, just ridiculous, right? So it's like, he's going to regress. He's not going to be that efficient. This whole offense is likely to regress, right? I was down on the idea of taking Lamar Jackson in the first round, or really any quarterback before the 5th round. And again, Lamar Jackson has been fine. If you took Lamar Jackson in the first round, you're disappointed, and you haven't and you haven't gotten what you hoped you would. So, it's just kind of one of those things where, if we can try to avoid overpaying, overspending relative to, market price, then that's probably something we should try to do. And we should just be looking for values. Look at Aaron Rodgers, right? Aaron Rodgers super late. This is a guy that's like, hey, it could be fine. If it doesn't work out, then so be it. Josh Allen fell in a lot of drafts. And plenty of these guys, Ryan Fitzpatrick, you probably picked up off waivers. And you got multiple, and you got multiple top 7 weeks at the position. There's always going to be those.
Second question. Do you think T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd can both finish top 15 wide receiver?
Both of them is tough. And the reason why is I have T. Higgins. I picked him up on a few leagues. Another example of a guy.
By the way, who's T. Higgins again? Oh, he's on the Bengals. Okay, that's right.
Yeah, he's their, pretty sure he's a rookie this year, right? He's their rookie wideout.
Yeah, out of Clemson.
Yeah. The thing that I like about T. Higgins is the type of usage he's been getting. It's really healthy ADOT stuff, like beyond 10 yards, downfield. He's got a really healthy air yard share on the team. He's getting some looks in the red zone goal line area, so a lot of those high value targets, and he's been really efficient on those. I think he has 2 targets inside the 10 so far this year, caught both of them. That usually is a thing that bodes well for future success, because think about it, if you're a quarterback and you throw the ball to a guy in a high value, high pressure area, and he can come away with catches, you're maybe going to be inclined to throw to him again. Similar example to AJ Green, his 1 target inside the 10 came in week 1, a play that is, controversial, but it got called back for offensive pass interference. He hasn't got another such target the rest of the season. So, and Robert Tonyan is another example. Early in the year, got a couple targets in the red zone, caught him. Next thing you know, he can have a 3 touchdown eruption game because he's in a spot where he's going to get the high value touches. Jimmy Graham is another example. The guy gets no work, 80 yards of the field, but when they get in the red zone,
they're throwing the ball up to that ball.
Yeah, he's their number 1 target. And if he's efficient with that, then you can have fantasy relevance. So the question with Tyler Boyd and T. Higgins comes down to volume. I'm really encouraged. And this is, kind of the thing I talk about, in terms of coaching staffs. I like what, Zach Taylor's been doing, even going back to last year. And again, you look at those pass attempts. 60, 44, north of 35, north of 35. That's what we want, right? We want to invest in that offense from a fantasy perspective. Tyler Boyd is capable. T. Higgins is capable. The problem is AJ Green won't die, right? Like, that's the problem. AJ Green.
He's old, man. That dude's our age.
He is. And again, so that's what I was starting to say is I picked up T. Higgins in a couple of leagues because I was like, ooh, it looks like AJ Green is becoming a corpse. He's fading out. And now it's going to be green light for T. Higgins. The good news is they're going with a lot of 11 personnel. So even last week, I still have to pull the numbers for it, but I'm pretty sure each of them were north of 60% snap share. The problem is with the targets. And if we're going to have AJ Green be on the field and be a threat for 10 targets, that's directly going to eat into the usage for T. Higgins. Yeah. If I had to pick one, obviously it would be Tyler Boyd, but I will say, again, I like saying fantasy football should be fun. And the fun side of me definitely rather have T. Higgins. The upside he has is really, really exciting. Joe Burrow is legit, man. Like, I completely believe in this guy.
Yeah.
And I like what this offense wants to do. Another thing, man, like, I love it when coaching staffs do things that make sense and is smart. You look at how this team was using their backfield early in the year, with Joe Mixon getting, a lot of carries, a little bit of involvement in the pass game, and Gio Bernard was still cutting into his snap share a lot. And then after losing some games, they were like, you know what, let's just start giving the ball to our best players. And he can go off for an eruption spot. And even though the past couple of weeks and some really, really tough matchups, he's been a guy that you can get 20 plus touches out of, maybe even 25 touches out of. And that's so valuable now. And it comes from a coaching staff that gets it. So the kind of offenses I like to invest in from a fantasy perspective are people that are going to utilize their best players. They seem to recognize that T. Higgins is someone they could describe in that manner. His snap share has increased consistently throughout the year. And again, this is the time for rookie wideouts, right? Henry Ruggs has a breakout game against your Kansas City Chiefs.
Fuck off.
Yeah, so all these, kind of rookie wideouts, these rookie running backs, now is the time, if you've been stashing these guys on your bench, they come up in a good spot, and you need a jolt in your lineup, now's the time where maybe you give these guys a chance in your starting roster. Again, depending on what you got, don't do anything crazy. Like there were some people who didn't play Julio Jones. I saw a lot, like on Twitter, like people who had Julio but didn't play him this week.
Why?
Yeah, it's just like, come on, like let's play your best guys. Let's not overthink it. But yeah, I think basically my short answer on it is no, I don't think both of them could finish top 15 unless, and I'm not going to speak anything ill on AJ Green, but unless he
already did.
Yeah, no, you're taking over that mantle. But unless he were to become just significantly less involved in the offense, if his snap share falls off a cliff, which I just don't see that happening. I don't see Zach Taylor having access to AJ Green and just like not using him. So unless AJ Green just like opts out for the rest of the year, like, obviously they can't opt out, but if he just, is like, oh, I'm not ready, I can't go, I'm not physically able to perform. But right. Again, he just came back this past week and had a pretty nice game. So
yeah. Last question. Do you trust Miami's skill positions going forward now that, with now you have a rookie quarterback?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. And I love that question because to me, that's a question. That's an example of someone who gets it, right? That's an example of someone who's thinking the game, who's, trying to assess what are the situations for these guys. He's not looking at these players and saying, ooh, do I want to play Myles Gaskin? Do I want to play Devontae Parker? No, he's saying, what's the situation? Is this a spot I want to invest in? So just kudos for that question. I really like that. And the answer it's going to suck, but the answer is we just don't know. We just flat out don't know. I'm really surprised. Ryan Fitzpatrick has been awesome all year. And he's been awesome in matchups where he shouldn't have been awesome. These scenarios, these scenarios.
Seattle.
Yeah, I mean, and San Fran is the one that really blew me away. Like Seattle, I was on that week. I was like, hey, this Seattle defense isn't the same. I think they were still missing Jamal Adams. But San Fran is the one that blew me away. Like I just absolutely did not see that coming. So I'm totally shocked, that they've done this. And I don't know. Like we haven't seen anything. We didn't get to see this guy in preseason. We haven't even gotten to see him in garbage time outside of last week where he played like one possession where he just handed it off a couple times. I think he had one throw. Did he have one throw? I don't know.
I didn't pay attention.
Yeah, I believe he had a couple, right?
Okay, so he had a couple throws. So yeah, man, I don't know. The thing that I do know is, and shout out to Biko, if you're a Dolphins fan, I think you should be encouraged. I'm really interested in what Brian Flores has been doing. Like we talked about, this was a team that invested, still projected to be among the worst offensive lines, probably the worst. But the way that they've schemed things shows me an offense that gets it. It shows me a coaching staff that understands the way they need to play. I love the way they've used Myles Gaskin, right? Like deploying him situationally based on game script. He might have a game script where he has low carries, but he's got a ton of targets, or he might have a game script where he has low targets, gets a ton of carries. It just depends on what's necessary to win the game. I also like that he's getting more work, and we have a clear running back to play here, over Matt Breida and Jordan Howard. I guess that's another thing I was technically right on, is that Matt Breida was not going to be fantasy relevant this year. And Jordan Howard is a guy that is completely unusable, right? Even though he's a touchdown vulture, right? All of his carries come like inside the 5. So Myles Gaskin, I think, is one guy that I'm certainly fine playing. I picked him up in the league. And I'm certainly fine starting him with Tua there. He should continue to be involved. Devontae Parker should continue to be the number one guy. The question, though, for me is, what about Preston Williams? What about Mike Gesicki? Preston Williams, in the way that he's used, is kind of like a red zone guy and a little bit more of like a deep threat. So those are the kind of targets that really rely on efficiency, either from really great pass catching talent or from really great pass accuracy. I don't know, right? I don't know how good Preston Williams is. And I definitely don't know how accurate Tua Tagovailoa will be. So he is a guy that, yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say is from a football standpoint, and I mean, the coach is a Patriots
Belichick, coaching
prototype, tree. Or is that the word prototype? He played,
coaching tree.
Coaching tree. Yeah, he was there forever. And so you know how Belichick runs his system. And what I find interesting is you look at Mike Vrabel and you look at Brian Flores. I think Mike Vrabel inherited a bunch of guys who got it. And I think that Flores inherited a bunch of guys who lived in Miami. They're on a shitty team forever. Miami hasn't been good. These guys just want to party. Some of them care about winning. And I think that last year, I think that Flores, I don't think he was the problem. I think it was the players. I really, really do. And I think you're seeing now that they have a year where they've kind of got the personnel, and kind of like Flores' way of coaching and et cetera is coming in and changing that whole landscape of thinking of like Belichick, okay, we're going to win. And I think a lot of players didn't want to adhere to that. Kind of like a Michelle Pfeiffer Dangerous Minds type of deal, right? Shout out. So I think that, if I'm a Dolphins fan, I love it. And yeah, like you said, from a fantasy standpoint, these guys are going to get used.
Well, yeah, they should. Again, the thing with Mike Gesicki, though, like I'm saying, is even Devontae Parker, if you look at those guys, the raw target volume has been volatile, right? I mean, you look at that, 5 targets, 11, 3, 3, 6. So it's really hard to know what to expect there. A lot of times rookie quarterbacks tend to lean a little bit more on tight ends. So there's probably at least a possibility that, Gesicki becomes more valuable. But yeah, I just think ultimately it would be a difficult thing to, identify.
Cool.
All right. Kevin has one if you want to hit it real quick. He says, is trade raping a real thing? Again,
I'm a little bit more of like a free market capitalist in that sense, when it comes to it. So I don't necessarily believe in that concept. I think if a person isn't doing the research, they're not looking at, the valuation for those players, then it's probably going to be kind of tough to, say like, oh, they got disadvantaged or something negative happened to them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If you didn't put the time, you didn't put the work in, and someone just totally ripped you off, then yeah, you should feel that pain.
All right,
so
and then
Aaron's saying
I have one. Raped. Yeah, I have one. I don't know if it's a question or just a comment, but I tried to hang on to Zach Moss for as long as I could, and this week I finally tossed them back on the waivers. I picked up somebody who I thought was better. I just couldn't do the Zach Moss thing anymore.
I think he's on mute. Oh.
Yeah, so I guess were you asking, like, should you pick him back up?
No, just, like, why didn't he do anything?
Oh, I got you. Well, this was kind of the thing, right? Where this backfield, the ultimate threat was going to be Josh Allen runs and vultures so many rushing touchdowns, right? So the idea was, okay, maybe we could invest in, Zach Moss, as a guy who maybe is going to siphon off some of the goal line work, away from Devin Singletary. The problem has been, even though he's gotten some of those opportunities, it's really not enough to turn into that big value. I mean, saying this here, I don't know if people are going to try to pick him up, but he isn't a guy that I'm out on yet. I mean, you look at it, he's missed 3 weeks. Again, I think we've started to see a couple of backs start to get a little bit more involved. This is a team that has a really late bye. One of the trends that's been interesting this year is the involvement of rookies following a bye week. With the latest example being DeAndre Swift. So I think, this kind of thing for Zach Moss, the reason I'm still encouraged is look at TJ Yeldon's usage in a recent game. He got pretty healthy snap share, got some touches. And to me, that just signals that this coaching staff isn't ready and doesn't want to use Devin Singletary in a full workhorse back capacity.
He hasn't done very well either.
I mean, in the games where he was sort of unchallenged for the bigger workload, he didn't necessarily do anything big. So yeah, it's clear to me that this team doesn't want to use him as a 20 plus touch a week guy. So there's at least going to be someone else. So I still think there could be some nice games for Zach Moss later on. But I mean, the reason why he was drafted where he was is because, for going below a guy like Jonathan Taylor, right, in drafts, because Jonathan Taylor was someone that we probably anticipate would get more work, competing with, I've already forgot his, Marlon Mack. Now, of course, that one we were down on because we felt like Marlon Mack was going to be more involved. Obviously, he got hurt, but still, he was being drafted ahead because, we knew Zach Moss was going to be the number 2 guy, right? We knew he was still going to be working behind Devin Singletary. We knew Josh Allen was still going to be a threat. So he was just another one of those guys where it's like, hey, why not take a shot? Among, DeAndre Swift being among them, where if you took a shot on DeAndre Swift and, you've got him now, you might be encouraged about moving forward. Because one thing that doesn't make any sense, and you talk about Bill Belichick coaching trees, well, Matt Patricia is a Bill Belichick coaching tree. And it's just kind of like, what is he doing? He picks up Adrian Peterson basically off the street, week 1, week of a game, and immediately he's the starting running back and gets the majority of touches, which just still blows my mind. He's continued to operate as their RB1, which again blows my mind. But again, you look at it, like I said, coming off of a bye, we're now a few weeks into the season. If you think about it for a rookie, you've had a lot more time to get acclimated. You've had a lot more time to build trust in the coaching staff. And coming off of that bye week, the coaching staff has an opportunity to say, you know what, let's try to scheme up a little bit more for him and really set up to integrate this guy. So you can be encouraged. I think we'll see what happens against Atlanta. But there's a couple nice matchups potentially, especially that Carolina one, where if he's going to get a lot of carries, that could be a ceiling spot.
He's going to eat. All right. Well, Aaron, we appreciate you coming on. I can't believe it's already mid fantasy football year. I mean, I feel like that it was just yesterday we were having the beginning podcast.
Yeah.
So anyway, no, we appreciate you being on.
Thanks, dude.
Yeah, for the rest of you fuckers, I hope you all suck week 7. That's just how I feel. I really do. Kyle, you have anything else to add to that?
No, I do not, Adam Gase.
Hey, I'm already Malcolm, so I don't need to be Adam Gase either. That was a funny question, Kevin. Anyway. All right, well, we will see you guys next week.
See ya.